Hello. I am excited to be here. I'm very excited about our topic. So, I was talking with a client earlier this week, and I said, what's your goal for this conversation we're having? And she said, I'm interested in shaking the paradigm. And there was just something so visual and so it like hit me, the concept of shaking the paradigm. There was just a beautiful piece to it that I thought, let's talk more about shaking the paradigm. So, what I wanted to do today is I want to cover the concept of shaking the paradigm. And I really want to give you three very distinct tips on getting unstuck, shaking the standard expectation, shaking the paradigm. And let's talk a little bit about what the paradigm really even means. So, the paradigm essentially is it's a filter that we use based on our past experiences and then our connections to that experience. So if we have an experience and we hardwire automatically connect it to a bad experience, that is going to start shaping our paradigm. If we connect it to a good experience, that's going to start shaping our paradigm. And what starts to happen, our central nervous system, our fight or flight response becomes connected to that experience and how we've categorized it. And based on how we've categorized it, we start looking for experiences that are similar to it. So when we have an experience, we lock in that experience typically as experiential beings. We feel it. We have a sensory experience to it. So most people think of the memory as just being something in the mind, and we think back to the moment of the visual on it. But I want you to realize that the body is taking in all of the sensory experiences around it. So it's taking in the smells and the feels and what it hears. And a lot of times you will have a connection to something through an auditory experience or through a smell, and you don't realize that you've locked in the connection to that event or that experience. So what the brain does, what the body does, is it continues to be on the lookout for other experiences that are similar. So if there's an experience that you've had where you've deemed it to be dangerous, you've deemed it to be an unhappy experience, and there was a smell that was associated with that experience in that moment, the next time you have an experience where that smell is connected, you may automatically start deeming that experience to be bad because you've made that direct connection to the smell and not realize that you're doing it. So you start to stack the experiences upon each other. So the paradigm begins to get built that whenever you smell this particular smell, there's a bad experience coming. When I was younger, I used to babysit everyone, like everyone on the block, the blocks over. Parents would come pick me up at my parents' house and they would take me to their house, and I would babysit for three families simultaneously on the block. And I was like the babysitter being dropped off at various houses throughout the neighborhood. I was definitely flush with cash and my $2 an hour babysitting experience pay for many years in my early teens. And there was a kid that I used to babysit, totally sweet kid, but he hated it when his parents went out. He just was so attached to his mom. And there was a night, apparently, I showed up. The father came to pick me up, and as we were walking in the front door, this kid was clinging to his mother's leg. And he was crying. And I said, "Oh no, what happened? What's the matter?" And his mother put on perfume that she only puts on when they're going out. So he, a long time ago, made a connection that when mommy puts on this perfume, when I smell this scent, my mother's leaving me. And so the mom didn't even realize why the connection happened. And what he said was, "It smells like the babysitter is coming." Now, this had nothing to do with me personally. He made the connection that his mother was leaving. And so she started to realize the only time she ever used this perfume was when she was going out and they needed a babysitter to watch the kids, right? She didn't wear it when they were going to a barbecue and the kid was coming. So this is a great example of how our body automatically connects experiences and connects the sensory experience as well. So one of the things that we do is we create this paradigm. So you've created a paradigm, which you have no idea a lot of times is running through the hardwiring of who you are. There's smells, there's feels, there's emotions, there's sensory connections. And what happens is we have to start shifting that paradigm in order to undo some of those connections. And you may have a bad experience with something or an automatic reaction to something, not because that thing is bad, but because you made an association with it. So the question is, if you're feeling stuck right now, there is something in your paradigm that is creating a situation where you feel like you can't move forward. So there is some connection at some point in your history that's making you feel like you can't move forward. Because I bet you, if we sat down and we spent 5 minutes, 5 very quick minutes, and just listed out all of the times in your life when you would move forward and you would take an action and you had gone on to the next thing, where you weren't stuck, you were the opposite of stuck, we could come up with totally 20, 30, 40 incidences where you moved forward. So if you're feeling stuck right now, there is a connection to something where you feel paralyzed. You don't feel connected. You feel like you can't move forward and take action. So there's a paradigm that needs to be shaken. So let me give you 3 tips on how to get unstuck and to shake your paradigm so that you can be released from whatever connection is in that paradigm that's making you feel stuck right now. So the first thing we're going to talk about is witnessing. What I want you to do first, and this is primary piece for getting unstuck, is you have to start witnessing that you're resistant to moving forward. I know in your mind, you might be thinking, no, but I want to move forward. I want to move past this. But what happens is a lot of people think, I just want to be on the other side of this. I just want to be beyond this. And then they get stuck in all of the details of all the things they're going to have to do to get there. Or they can't even pick one thing to move forward on because they're so overwhelmed with all of the things that have to happen for them to be on the, quote, other side of whatever they're resisting. So I want you to ask yourself, rather than how do I get unstuck, I want you to ask yourself, what am I resisting? Am I resisting taking action? Am I resisting having a conversation I don't want to have? Am I resisting maybe the idea that if I do what I want to do, that someone may not like me or someone may be mad? Am I resisting how much work I think it's going to take to get unstuck? Do I believe that I'm incapable of taking action? Am I not feeling motivated to take action? Ask yourself, where's the resistance? Because here's the beauty of resistance. Resistance, think of it as a giant arrow pointing forward, showing you where your opportunity for growth is. The best opportunities for growth always come out of resistance. What am I resisting? And are you resisting it just because you're so familiar with how you feel right now? All right, so witnessing the resistance. The second thing is I want you to learn how to drop. When we say things like we're stuck, I don't understand, I don't know what to do, I feel like I should know the answer to this. All of those things are coming from a thought process. That's your left brain, your logical brain trying to speak. When in reality, we are being driven by our emotional or sensory connections to events and moments. So when you are trying to override your sensory experience and your emotional resistance, and you're trying to figure it out, what happens is you're staying up here and you're overthinking. And when we overthink, that means we underfeel. And when you underfeel, perhaps maybe you're resistant to feeling the feels, we don't get into the space that actually is driving our actions. And the space that drives our actions is actually coming from the heart space. It's coming from the emotional space. It's coming from our emotional being. And a lot of times, many of us have trauma responses where we had to learn how to figure things out. So we hyper-logicked our way through things. And that was a defense mechanism for a long time, which is very familiar. And we prided ourselves on how logical we were with things. But when we realize that literally every decision we make is actually being driven by our emotional selves, our emotional experiences, our emotional connections, if you can drop down into this emotional space, you actually will be much more clear on what's keeping you stuck. And you will have an answer on where to go. But a lot of times we don't trust that because it doesn't feel logical, because it's not. And there's a reason it's not. All of us, whether we want to agree with this or not, and I've had more than one conversation with clients about this, especially any of our male clients tend to like to push back on this statement. But all of our decisions, all of them, are made from an emotional space, and we use logic to justify our decisions. No matter how many numbers, how many graphs, how many spreadsheets you can show me on the logic of a decision that you made, there is still a kernel, a seed of emotion that pushed out, created your paradigm to what is right and what is wrong, or what is good or what is bad, that we then use our logical being to then explain it. Make sense? So when you can learn how to drop from here to here, it feels like the longest distance sometimes. It's short, but man, it feels like a journey sometimes. Or if you've learned as a defense mechanism to shut down your connections to your emotions, or you don't trust them because it didn't feel safe to trust them growing up, what you're doing is you're blocking where the true answer really is for you. We do a lot of work with our clients, helping them bridge that gap, bridge the here to here, bridge the thought to the heart, and understanding how having those two connected is not only safer for them, it's the healing that they really need. And it's the brilliance of who we really are, not only just to make decisions, but to truly step in, step up, and live our true, authentic selves. And if you struggle with making decisions, you struggle with trying to split on both sides, trying to hold on to multiple options at the same time, you probably have a defense mechanism set up or a trauma attached to stepping forward and speaking your actual mind. And then finally, so number 3. So number 1 was witnessing the resistance. Number 2 is learning how to drop into the heart space. And number 3 is asking, how does this feeling of being stuck benefit me? This isn't just thinking positive. That's a very different thought process. We're not just making this all flowery and feel good. We're asking, how does this benefit me? And the reason that that's so effective is because, again, our subconscious is wired to keep us safe, not to keep us happy, not even to keep us healthy, but to keep us safe so we don't die in this moment. And if you start connecting fear with your association of how you're experiencing this moment, your brain will go into protect mode. Your body will shut things down and start to protect. And it will start to put you in a position where you will make decisions based on what is safe, not necessarily what is good. So every decision we make, every feeling that we have, everything that we are experiencing from the perspective of the hardwiring of who we are comes from the idea of this will benefit me by keeping me safe. It will benefit me more to stay safe and alive than to feel happy. And sometimes those two things are in conflict from the hardwiring of who we are. So if you can take a step back, look at the moment that you're experiencing right now and ask yourself, in this moment, as I feel stuck, as I feel like I don't want to move forward, as I feel unexcited about what it is that I'm dealing with, if I don't feel motivated, in what way is that actually benefiting me from a hardwired standpoint? And some of the answer just might be because I'm so familiar with being here. Some of the answer might be, well, if I step forward and I do the thing I know I really want to do, I might offend someone in my protective tribe, my group of people who are there to keep me safe. There are many, many underlying hardwired benefits that we automatically fall into because of our paradigm that's so super important to us. But it seems so difficult sometimes to see it because it's running underneath the surface, and it's been running underneath the surface for so long that you may not even realized it was there. And it may have been running under the surface since you were 4 years old. So Tammy Hammonds, great. I have problems. Can you help me out, please? If you have a question directly, feel free to put it in the chat here. I'd love to see where you are with this. Because when you start to understand physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, who you really are, and you feel safe to be able to step into that, a lot of the stuckness, a lot of our negative connections, they dissolve because we don't need them, because we're stepping into our full balanced adult selves. We don't need these underlying protective children, these threaded moments where we felt a wound happen and we kind of fractured off from our balanced adult, healthy, protected self, right? So here's the thing. I want you to take a deep breath and just know that we all have a paradigm, and it's all based on past experiences, but that paradigm isn't locked in unless you want to stay unaware that there's a paradigm out there. And if you become open to the idea that this paradigm can be shifted and shaped to help you reach the version of yourself you know you're capable of being, the one you are here, it's amazing what you'll be able to accomplish with so much less effort, challenge, and resistance. So again, 3 ways to get unstuck. You first have to witness the resistance that you're in. Second, you want to drop from your thought process, your logical side, into your heart space to really understand the connection that you've made. And third, you want to ask yourself, how does this benefit me? When you look at it from a hardwired standpoint, how could this benefit me to stay stuck rather than move forward or take action? If you want to see more about how to really build into this resilience and find out how to really help yourself, you can absolutely, on our website, you can go to nourish123.com and we have a quiz that's up there right now on resilience and making sure you can avoid burning out and being stuck. You can also, if you were like, hey, I'm ready to have a conversation with you, I want to see what it would look like to potentially be a private client, or you want to bring us in to work with your staff and your company, because we do also corporate wellness and healing events as well, you can absolutely go to just nourish123.com/heal, HEAL, and we can have a private conversation about what that might look like if you're in a space where you are ready to move forward and do something to really launch yourself into the next level of healing that you know you're capable of having. All right. Well, it's good to see you on this amazing, amazing day. The recording on this will be in the Facebook group. It will be in YouTube. It will be on our social media, Instagram, if you want to go back and watch this. But I am so excited to have you guys here today talking about this resistance, talking about resilience, talking about how to shake the paradigm so that you can get yourself unstuck and stepping into the beauty of living who you really are.